19.
We're going to start with this one. It's called Wild Mignonette, and the leaves look very much like wild rocket. It actually tastes quite similar, even though it's actually not even in the same family as wild rocket. It's not in the cabbage family. So you can use that just in salads, any way that you would rocket, really. But this one is sort of two for the price of one, because these seed capsules here are very spicy. They're sort of peppery and mustardy. In fact, the name mignonette means little spice. And they can be used, you probably best chop them down a little bit, but you can put them through salads or use them in any kind of cooking where you want a bit of extra heat. So this is salad bonnet again, and it's a lovely delicate salad leaf or herb, and we just slide the leaflets off like that, and you can use them in all sorts of cooking or into salads. Just a bit more about the plant and its context. It's a member of the rose family, which is actually more a plant of fruits than salads or herbs. And in fact, one of the rose species which are found in the wild in the UK is called Burnet rose, and it has a leaf arrangement that's very similar to this, so it's easy to spot the family resemblance there. So once again, this is oxeye daisy, and I've just picked a couple of out of season flowers. Not many of these about at the moment, but that's what this plant produces in the summer. But we've now got a second growth of the leaf. When the plant is flowering, there's not a lot of this leaf around, but it's super abundant now after just a little bit of rain. So they're a sweet aromatic leaf. They're nice wilted as a green. Also nice chopped through a salad. And the stalks are nice and crunchy. As ever, I'd say use those separately. So we're here to talk about rowan berries. This is one of many fruits in the rose family. It's part of a genus called Sorbus, and in that there are several fruits such as white beam and wild serviceberry, which we'll be seeing in a couple of weeks' time. The rowan is a very sour and slightly bitter fruit. It's most commonly used just to make a jelly that's served with venison and things like that. I like to treat it a little bit like garlic, not that it tastes like garlic, but it's a very intensely flavoured thing. So chopping it into very small pieces, and then you can put it through bakery, you can put it through soups and other dishes, and it adds a lot of colour and just that little bit of bite. And so that's moving from an initial experience you'd probably have of eating one of the berries and thinking it's far too intense. But remember, things like your spice cupboard are full of things that are far too intense. So the trick is to work how to use the ingredient, and as I say, to cut it small and spread it thinly. That's the secret with this one. So we're here to talk about elderberries again, and of course elderberries are what elderflowers turn into, so that's a good reason not to pick all the elderflowers in your neighbourhood, except otherwise you won't get any of these. So I want to tell a little story about an old producer of port that used to sell to the Navy. And he had two lines of port. One was the stuff made from grapes, which was the legitimate one, as he supposed. And then there was this other one that he made from elderberries. That was the kind of cheap version. So one day, an old sea captain came in, a naval captain, to replenish his port supplies, and sat down to taste the new batch and check it was to his liking. He decided it wasn't. And he announced to his port supplier that what he really wanted was some of that stuff that he'd sold him last time. Now, of course, the stuff that he'd sold him last time was this elderberry stuff. And the port seller, feeling a bit guilty but nonetheless intrigued, pressed him as to why he preferred that previous batch. And the captain announced that what had happened was that he'd fed it to his crew, who had all come down with the flu, and they had miraculously recovered much faster than they would otherwise do. And so it's a story that supports what scientists have now proved with petri dishes and viruses in the lab, and that is that elderberries have very strong antiviral properties. We're here to look at Japanese rose hips. This is a garden plant which has become naturalised in a lot of parts of the UK now. The species is called Rosa rugosa, and the hips are really much fatter and more substantial than the dog rose, and other native wild species. What I tend to do with them is cut them in half, or even into quarters, and scoop the seeds out. Now the seeds can be used to extract an edible oil. We're actually going to have a go at that in the next few weeks once we've got a nice stock of seeds. But also there's an Indian restaurant in Canterbury that uses a lot of wild plants, and they make a chutney out of the Japanese rose hips, and what they do is just blitz the whole thing down. Now with a decent enough blender you get past both the woodiness of the seeds and also the hairs surrounding them, which is a bit of a thing to be avoided, but they're just blitzed down in the blender. What we're left is with these soft sticky rosehip pieces, and they go nicely in baking. You can chop them up and put them through a broth, which is one of the things we're going to do this week, or you can put them on a cheese plate. They go very nice with hard fruity cheeses like Gruyere, that sort of thing. Okay, so although we're here to talk about Japanese rose hips, I thought it might be worth just showing you this one Japanese rose flower, which seems to be the last one of the year. Of course, we had these in the wild box a few weeks ago, and they're very fragrant petals. So we're here in the Forager Dry Store to look at toothed rack, Latin name Fucus serratus. It's a really abundant seaweed around the British coast. It's quite chewy and tough raw. You could, strictly speaking, you could chop it down, but I'm not sure how digestible it would be. However, if you cook it at a gentle heat for anything up to about 2 hours, or maybe 20 minutes in a pressure cooker, you're going to get a very soft thing that you can use just like greens. But the long, slow simmering, which is probably better for the stock, that's what I'm most interested in, is to have a very flavoursome stock with this seaweed. And for this week's recipe, we're going to have shiitake mushrooms in there, which are going to add the other half of the umami synergy. There's a lot of glutamate in this, ribonucleotides in the shiitake, and then a few other ingredients from the wild box to make a seaweed-based broth. Just going to sum everything up. This is oxeye daisy. It's kind of fruity, a bit aromatic, la la la. We're going to put it in a salad with the wild mignonette and with onion and Bramley apple. It's a key ingredient. So in goes the oxeye daisy. That's in your box. You had a salad one, salad bonnet. Well, of course, that's cucumbery, and it's not going in that salad. It's going to go in a salad with the toothed rack. Okay, so it's going to be an interesting, like cucumber, and then the savoury note of the toothed rack. But it's also going to go in the broth with the toothed rack. So that's going to be kind of like a repetition. We've got a broth and a salad, which are pretty much the same. For those of you who are watching, we're trying to solve the problem of me not smiling on camera, so I've got my little girl pulling faces at me while I talk. It seems to be working. Right, not too many faces in that because I do need to talk. So here's the toothed rack. So we cook that, we make a broth and extracting like lovely flavours from it. Now, this is on the umami synergy topic that we've talked a lot about, right? So toothed rack, it's got glutamate, a little bit of that meaty ribonucleotide flavour, but we're also putting mushrooms in there. I put shiitake, but you can put oyster, okay? And then we've got a double lot of that meaty ribonucleotide, so that broth is then a really good base. And you could use it for pretty much everything, anything, but what we're going to use it for with, is, so we're going to chop some rowan berries, and that also will go through the salad with the with the toothed rack, but it's going to go in the broth. Right, so that's the rowan berries. Now, we haven't really given you enough uses for the rowan berries this week. You can chop them finely like garlic cloves. That's what I want to do. That's ridiculous. So we can chop them finely like a garlic clove. Obviously it tastes nothing like garlic, but the point is, it's a very strong flavour. It's kind of bitter, sour, intense. And you want to just spread that intensity through the dish. Also, you spread these tiny little flecks of orange through the dish, which makes it look terrific. But, as I say, we haven't given you enough uses for this little pile of rowan berries. keep them to one side because we're going to be doing rowan berry jelly in a future week. Okay. So then they go in your box, and then these Japanese rose hips. They're kind of sweet and delicious. Don't need to really cook with them or do much with them. You just got to get the seeds out. Thank you, Ella. So you get the seeds out of these, and then they go in the broth in the salad. Now, wild mignonette. Now, in my capacity as a non-expert, I have an error to confess. I said that this meant little spice. I remember that wrong. It doesn't mean, mignonette doesn't mean little spice, it means little darling, like you, darling. Okay, but the connection with spice is, mignonette is also the name to a little pepper and coriander mix, which presumably is a French thing, hence why it's got a French name. Quite why that's called mignonette, I don't know. But these pods here are really very spicy and very cool. Do you know what? You could just pickle these like capers and use them whole. We're using them whole in the salad with the oxeye daisy, and then they're going chopped into the broth and also chopped into the salad with the tooth drac. So in the box, oh hang on, also these wiry little leaves, they're going in the salad with the Bramley apple and the oxeye daisy. Lovely. Lastly, elderberries. Now, you just kind of drag these off with a fork. It's quite fun, sort of raking them off. And that's going in this, it's like a baked, pancakey, battery thing, which is called a clafoutis, I think that's the right way to say it, in France. But apparently, according to Mark Hicks, it's not a French recipe at all. It's actually a Kentish one, and here I am in Kent. So, that's kind of fun. If you have some hogweed seeds left over from previous weeks, you'll be able to grind them down and use them instead of vanilla. So that's it. That's everything in your box. Wild box number 19. All I've got to do is tape it up and send it. Yeah, you can make faces, Ella, but funny noises we'll probably manage without. Thank you, Danny. Or should I say, thank you, mignonette.
Warbot number 19.